We've got a 1997 Town & Country van that we have determined that we've got a faulty fuel pump. We're going to go through the steps as far as replacement of that fuel pump today. This particular vehicle has a Schrader port on it where we can attach our pressure gauge, bleed any pressure off the system, catch any fuel that we bleed out of the system into a safe container and dispose of properly. Before we start the installation of this fuel pump, we're going to remove the negative battery cable. In order to do a proper fuel pump replacement, we need to clean the inside of the tank, and that will require the removal of the tank. In order to remove the tank, we have to disconnect our fuel filler hose, our emissions hoses, and we have to remove this shield in order to gain access to the emissions hose. You will notice on the electrical connector there is a red safety retainer. We'll have to slide it over to the right in order to remove the connector. Now this is the main feed line to the engine. We may have a residual pressure that's built up in the system, so we need to be sure and try to capture any of that we can. At this point, we're ready to lower the fuel tank. We have a static ground that's attached to it that goes over to the fuel filter. We need to be sure and disconnect it so we can reattach it later. Now we should be ready to lower the tank. Keep in mind that the filler hose is still attached, so as we lower it, we'll have to remove that. We have to remove these emissions tubes. They actually run through the frame support. This is a mechanical regulated system. We have a fuel filter that is attached to the top of the tank with a pressure line coming from the pump module to the fuel filter, and then a return line from the fuel filter back to the pump module. Actually, the regulator for the system is part of the fuel pump module assembly. In order to keep debris from getting into the tank, we need to clean it with mild detergent and water. Now that we've cleaned the outside of the tank, we need to remove the fuel lines, which are a pinch type connector again. We will need to remove the retainer in order to reuse it on the new module. Remove the fuel filter. The fuel filter will have fuel in it, and we will need to capture that. It is always recommended that we replace the fuel filter at any time we change a fuel pump. In order to remove this fuel pump from the fuel tank requires a special tool. These tools are available at the local auto parts store. Again, we turn it counterclockwise in order to remove it. Now that we've got the locking ring removed, we'll remove the pump module. We'll remove the tank seal, set it off to the side. We will not be reusing that. This is a plastic module type assembly, and the lower portion of this will have fuel in it. We need to be sure and safely capture that. As we can see, there is some contaminants built up on the strainer. Even if your fuel pump strainer does not show these signs, we always recommend cleaning the inside of the tank. When unboxing your Airtex fuel pump assembly, you'll note that the tank seal is included along with any other components needed. There's a locating relief here, and on the bottom of the fuel pump module is a tab that will locate into that relief. Slide it into the tank, noting the arm not to bend it or disform it. This is a spring-loaded assembly. As we put it in, we're going to compress that spring slightly. Also, we want to make sure that our sealing O-ring is in proper position. Sometimes we may need to work that around with a small screwdriver to get it in location. Now that we've got the Airtex fuel pump module installed into the tank, and we've got the locking ring started, we will use the special tool again to reinstall the locking ring. Install our new fuel filter, install the fuel line into the holding bracket. With this type of fuel line, there are two different installation methods. Both work, it's just your preference. You can either install the clip into the line itself and then snap it into place, or we can install the clip onto the fitting and then snap the line fitting into place. There we are, ready to go back in the vehicle. Start the emissions hose through the frame opening. Just want to get them started through there now. We're not going to be able to hook them up yet. start positioning the tank into its location. We need to keep the emissions hose from kinking as we go up with it. We also need to start our fuel filler hose. We install the tank straps, tighten the hose clamp on the filler hose, reinstall the emissions tubes, and reinstall the shield around the emissions tubes. As we noted when removing this unit, there is a static ground strap. You need to be sure and reposition it on the tank. Connect the electrical connector, slide the safety retainer into position. Reinstall the emissions tube and the fuel line going to the engine. Reinstall negative battery cable. Cycle the key 2 to 3 times. Let the fuel pump charge the system, and we'll start the vehicle. After starting the vehicle, look at the fuel pressure gauge and make sure that it is within vehicle specification. To remove the gauge, we'll shut the engine off and bleed the pressure from the system using the pressure relief on the gauge, making sure to capture any fuel in a safe container.